Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Gallagher Shots YouTube channel and podcast. It's your match preview for the Borussia Dortmund versus Newcastle United Champions League match day 4 game. Make sure I get that right. I am Daryl, filling in for Scott today. Usually as a panelist, but I'm going to try and steer the ship on this one. We're joined by regular Andy, and we're also joined by our Champions League expert Dan. How are we doing, boys?
Hello.
How are we getting on?
I'll let our lovely guest go first.
Yeah, I'm all right. I've just been in the studio recording a Champions League podcast for the fantasy game. Had a little bit of a nightmare on the way there. So my podcast co-host Aaron came to pick me up tonight, pulled up outside my house, locked the door, go to get in the car, 1 foot in the car, realise it's not him, and some poor lass is sat there.
Wow. That's an interesting Sunday
I
night.
looked her deadpan in the eyes, screamed, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry."
Do you make a habit of that, do you?
Normally I know them when I see it. Yeah, it was just one of the worst moments of my life. Wanted the ground to swallow me up. Maybe 30 seconds later, he pulled around the corner. I was like, I swear, my mate's car looks like this. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
And now she knows where I live. So if I get interrupted anytime during this podcast, it's probably just the police, lads. Nothing to worry
Right. Okay. No worries.
Other than that,
Okay.
I'm great.
No bother. How are you doing, Andy?
Good. Had a bit of trauma in our house because my fiance has rang me saying this random guy's just got in my car earlier. I didn't know what to do. But no, all good. Getting myself all packed for Dortmund tomorrow. Cannot wait. Me and my mate Michael have just been messaging each other sort of T-minus 13 hours, T-minus 12 hours. Yeah, can't wait.
How are you getting there, Andy?
So it's a drive to Hull to jump on the car ferry to Rotterdam and then drive in Rotterdam to Dortmund. So it's like an overnight ferry job and stuff like that. So it's going to be a bit of a trek, but you know what? The trip there will be class. That's going to be part of the fun, isn't it? So can't wait.
Well, I hope it all goes plain sailing, especially on that rough North Sea in this sort of weather that we've been.
I don't like water, so I'm trying not to think about the boat trip too much. I'm just going to put my head down.
Get some sleeping tablets down you and just sleep for the whole thing. That's the best thing to do.
I'll try and find some Valium somewhere.
Right, so in true messed up fashion, because I'm hosting this one, we're going to try and dive straight into it. So, match day 4, it's a rerun, but the opposite way around, of course, because we're going to be in Dortmund of the last game in match day 3, which was the 1-0 defeat. We're coming into this on a good run, having gotten some nice little revenge against Arsenal on Saturday night, having lost 2-0 in the corresponding game last season. Some good displays all around. We'll not try and delve too much in that because we've got the match reaction on the channel there with, I think, was it with who was it with? Was it with you, Ian? Were you on it?
Yeah, Andy was on it, I think, and then wasn't Joe on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, sorry. I'm just thinking about
sorry.
No, it was Joe and I and Chris. Yeah.
Yes. So that's on the channel for everybody to enjoy, especially if you want to hear about Mikel Arteta throwing his toys out the pram in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. But yeah, so we had a good result against Arsenal, so there's a lot of momentum on the board, and obviously we had the great result down at Old Trafford last midweek. So the momentum is certainly on our side. But we'll start very quickly now and go into our opponents who had a pretty big game themselves at the weekend. So Dan, what's the crack? What's happened?
Oh, they got stuffed, mate. 4-0 off Bayern Munich. Sané with a hat-trick of assists. Kane with a hat-trick of goals. I think Andy actually saw more of the game than I did, so I think he should talk about how the game went. My little overview.
I watched the sort of extended highlights. Sky Sports had a sort of 30-minute highlight package on, so I watched that, and it was interesting because Dortmund got smashed in scoreline only. Really, they actually played pretty well. They kept the ball pretty well. They were getting in buy-ins the final third quite a lot. Very similar to how they played against us, where they were finding those quick wingers and trying to sort of get in behind. Neuer pulled off a couple of good saves. And what was happening is that they were just getting completely unpicked on the counter. It was just long diagonals to Sané, sprinting through. Kane just stood in the middle for tap-ins. A couple of crosses, things like that. So I think the scoreline flattened behind a little, but ultimately that was clearly Tuchel's plan, was just to sit off. They've got an amazing, I think they've got the best defensive record in Bundesliga, which probably, you could probably guess that, even if you knew nothing about German football. They just sat off them, broke them down on the counter, ran through the midfield like they weren't there. And I was watching that, obviously, with my Newcastle hat on, thinking, these are things we could definitely do, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But yeah, still a demoralising loss. It's obviously a Klassiker. And it's a big game for them, title race, getting away from them already. Kane's now scored 15 goals in 10 games, which I thought I would just mention because it's just ridiculous. Yeah, hopefully it's one of those where it can either knock them for 6 and demoralise them for the next game, or they get them in the dressing room after and say, right, lads, time to turn it around for this game against Newcastle. So hopefully it's the former.
It's funny because from what I remember seeing Dortmund, in my eyes, and especially, I think this probably applies more to when they had the likes of Haaland playing, and even going back to when they had Lewandowski, is that Dortmund were a team that were more clinical on a counter-attack. They used to be able to soak up a lot of pressure and then break on teams, and that was how they did it. That was how they got that was their bread and butter, was to break on teams with electric pace and then just get them on the counter-attack. I think it was more or less under Klopp as well, wasn't it? It was like Klopp's style was to just soak everything up and then just pounce on teams and just plow through them. And score on the counter. And I've just remembered that I've forgotten something very important. So at this point, we're going to take a mini injunction and we're going to do it now. So I do apologise, but it's time to have a quick word from our sponsor.
The Gallagher Shots match preview is brought to you by Magpin. Magpin are the go-to site for high-quality, unofficial enamel pin badges of Newcastle United players, legends and retro kits. For more information, visit their website at magpinbadges.bigcartel.com.
Thank you very much for that one, Scott. So we're going to bring back in to Newcastle. So it's important to note that in preparation for this game on Tuesday night, that Eddie Howe made some very tactical substitutions against Arsenal. We saw Callum Wilson come off after the hour mark, which saw Anthony Gordon go through the middle for the last half an hour of that game. And of course, that led to the point where we scored. Joe Linton ended up out wide on the left wing, and Joe Willock came into midfield. And I think we saw a little bit of the overlap of the classic Joe Linton-Joe Willock partnership, where one will go out wide, one will come inside, and had a bit of a switch around on that as well. Miggy Almiron came off roughly at about the same time as Callum Wilson, and he was replaced for Jacob Murphy, the Poisson, because he lasted about another 5 or 10 minutes before his shoulder popped out and he was putting a press on the Arsenal defender. And I was sat at the other end of the ground for that, and I was sort of wondering in immediate impact, like the immediate time when it happened, I thought, why has he stopped running? He suddenly just stopped running, and then he just peeled off to his right hand side, and I could see his left arm was just like still
hanging off.
And then it was pretty much hanging off. And as soon as you turn around, I thought, oh God, his shoulder's popped out again. And the fair play to the medical team, they came straight on, and I honestly thought that at that point they'd actually popped his shoulder back in because they got around it. They got around it very quickly, and they were holding that arm, and I thought they were going to try and pop it back in, but he came straight off. So that was another substitution that was made. We also saw Dan Burn have to leave the game quite early with a back injury, which by all accounts could be quite significant. We know, thanks to our lovely members who, if you're watching, hello, keep being members. And if you want to be a member, it's I'll get this in now, I might as well. Memberships from $2.99 a month, and you'll get all of your instant access to videos like this one and all the other features of the channel, including the Telegram chat. And again, that's how we find out certain things and at certain times. So yeah, we expect that the Dan Burn back injury might be something that keeps him out for a little while. And as a result, as much as I get lambasted for it in our own group chat, we saw Kieran Trippier switch sides and go to left back, and Tino Livramento came on to play right back. And again, Tino came on and pretty much carried on his form from the Man United game. And yeah, so we ended the game a little bit skew with, and Matt Ritchie came on for Jacob Murphy, who shouldn't add that in. And I think that probably added a bit to our resolve in that half of that game against Arsenal, because it really got back to the walls towards the end. But again, it showed that we are there for a fight. And as you mentioned earlier, Andy, if Bayern Munich can soak up defensive pressure, we certainly did that against Arsenal for the latter part of the game. So there's certainly signs amongst us that we can do this, and maybe have some sort of similar game plan going into the game on Tuesday. I'm going to shut up for a second, in just a second, because I don't have any referee information, which is normally my little bit that I like to do on this preview. So we're going to go in. We don't really need to do too much about signings, because we did, and players to watch as well, because we did a lot of that in the corresponding video for the fixture at home. However, we do know that certain players featured against Bayern Munich and some came back from injury. So, Dan, do you want to just give us the rundown of how that happened?
Yeah, sure. So obviously Emre Can's out. So Özcan, who came on for Can in the first game against us, he started at the weekend. Marco Reus played on the right, I think, with Marlon on the left. You might know more about that than me, Andy. But when I was watching it, that's what it seemed. Because I've only seen the normal highlights. I've not seen the extended. Julian Brandt came in as well. So Julian Brandt came in for Felix Mnecha, who scored the goal against us. So it's interesting. It'd be interesting to see who's actually going to play against us, whether Mnecha is going to keep his spot after how he played against us in the first leg. I think a lot of Newcastle fans were impressed with him. I'll never say a good word about him, thanks to his homophobic statements prior to this summer. I actually thought he was fine against us anyway. I think people maybe inflated how good he was just because of potentially how bad we were in the first half. Julian Brandt's a significantly better footballer. He is really, really good, very tidy on the ball, very, very skillful, wants to go forward.
How old is he now? Because he seems to have been around quite a while now as well.
Yeah, but he looks 6. He's an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer regen, isn't he, in that respect?
Yeah.
I don't know how old he is. I think he might be about 25 now, something around that age, off the top of my head, because he's one that's been around since he was 16, 17, 18, yeah. And he, I think I sort of described him last time, he reminds us a lot of like Dejan Kulusevski, where he never looks like he's moving very quickly, he sort of glides on the ball, he got a really good change direction, does not look like a footballer, but I think he's a very, very impressive player. And as you alluded to earlier on, the goalkeeper did have a knock and he came back for this game. So they're pretty much at full strength, Dortmund, now. The players have all had some good minutes. I don't think you can take a huge amount of stock in a result against Bayern Munich, although 4-0 is quite shocking. And again, I think Annie's right in terms of how we need to play against them. One of the issues that we had in our place was their traps for our fullbacks. So Jamal Lascelles is so improved, it's actually quite remarkable. But it's also just important to accept him for who he is and what he is and love him for all of those good things. One thing that he isn't is a progressive ball player that can pass a ball into the center of the pitch into a number 8, or unless Bruno drops in line with him into a number 6.
He definitely tries to do it now.
And
but
one of the issues for that Dortmund game,
varied success.
Yeah, well, that's it. Varied success. Him and Cher didn't want to do it against Dortmund at home. So every ball from them went out to the fullbacks, and they set traps for the fullbacks. And it's one of the issues with Nick Pope, as good as a goalkeeper he is in terms of a shot stopper. We kind of play with 10 men in possession because he's got no distribution. So the problem is that we want to give the ball into our fullbacks' feet. They then, when they get pressed by the opposition, the trap's been set, they have to go into Lascelles or Cher, respectively, and then likely back to the goalkeeper or between each other, and the game gets slowed down to a snail's pace. Where Pope would be important is that Trippier or Burnett could play a 1-2, and then we can push up, and with an accurate pass, it makes their traps more of a risk for them to take, because if we beat it, we're in. So playing quickly, getting the ball into midfield as soon as possible and hitting them on the counter-attack, I think is 100% our best way of doing it.
That's what Bayern did as well, 100%.
If we try and keep a hold of that ball, we'll slow it down. And our two centre shares long-range patterns, unbelievable. It's he might be the best long pass of a ball from a defender in world football. I think Anderson at Crystal Palace is ridiculous as well, but he's so good at it. But again, playing those balls along the ground, he doesn't seem to like doing it. He'd rather dribble with it. And I think the weather really affected decision-making in that respect at home. Yeah. I don't think he wanted to take the risk of dribbling the ball with it being so slippy. We saw how other people were struggling with controlling the ball. I think Dan Burns' injury is a blessing in disguise. And obviously, I'd never wish injury on anyone, let alone our own players. And I think in the long run, it's going to be detrimental because we are one player down for this hectic run. The amount of games we've got to play is really, really going to be difficult for the players. But for this particular game, having Livramento and Trippier, because I think that'll be I think Trippier will be left back, and I think Livramento will be right back. And I wouldn't have said
Daryl's grin. He's buzzing.
Hey, there's no grin.
I wouldn't have said that before the injury. For me, it was a case of Burn plays the big games, Hall covers them. Same with Trippier in Livramento on the right. You needed them both to rotate in their natural positions because of how many games we've got. I think we've got 10 games in 31 days from the end of November.
Yeah. That's coming up, yeah.
So that is awful. So you needed them both, but we've been dealt this hand, and now I think it's Trippier on the left, Livramento on the right, and then Hall will cover as needs be, and there can be some rotation and maybe some of the weaker games perhaps. But I think that's the way it's going to be. And for what we want to achieve in this game, I think that's going to be of massive benefit to us in the way that we would like to play. And Livramento and Trippier, whether Trippier's on the left side or the right, is a much better distributor of a ball than Dan Burn. I think Dan Burn's in the team for his physical presence, his defensive work from set pieces, and his offensive work from set pieces. So I think for what we want to do and how we want to achieve it, I think it's going to be good news for this game.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that as well, Dan. And it's so important to note that whilst we have Hall to cover at left back while Trippier is there, we're also suffering with the loss of Matt Targett from the game last week. So he would have been the backup option there as well. But we're also blessed on the opposite side by having the return of Emil Kraft in the same game last week against Man United. So there is a little bit of a blessing there just to help with the cover and also give us a little bit of depth, even though we're going to have to make these forced changes. Andy, we're going to have to move into midfield. So again, we are sort of light because we are going to be missing Sandro for the foreseeable because of everything that went on there. And how do you think the midfield is going to set up?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think having Willock back is amazing. We've said this a few times. It's a cliche that he's like a new signing, but he is. I think we've all forgot how good he was. Well, we all knew he was mint, but I think we'd forgot how mint he was. We know about his physicality, but I think we often underappreciate how good he is technically on the ball. Just his passing range, the way he can finish, run with the ball. It's like he's like our pound shop Jude Bellingham. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, just the fact that the way he drives with the ball, it maybe doesn't have those poaching instincts that Bellingham has, but he can just do everything in midfield. So I'd love to see him get involved. I really liked seeing Joe Linton in the sort of forward left position. I think we really benefited from him making those diagonal runs and his physicality. But I do think for this game where we think we might be under the cosh or maybe trying to surrender possession a bit more, I think we may see Joe Linton. We know Bruno's going to play because he's our Champions League guy. So I think we'll probably start with Joe Linton, Longstaff, Bruno, because they are the three guys that Howe can rely on. And I think he'll want Gordon on the left and he'll want Wilson in the middle, which means that Willock doesn't necessarily get involved straight away. But what a pair of fresh legs to bring on if we need him. I think it worked really well in the game just gone where we could move Willock into the middle and put Joe Linton out wide, things like that. So I think them three, the legs they've got, the how they are under pressure, so press resistant. We know that they're tactically amazing as well, and they've probably had more time in the training ground than everyone else. So yeah, that'd be them three for me.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you on that. And I think it makes it's a no-brainer to play Bruno in this game anyway, because we unfortunately will be missing him for the game against Bournemouth next weekend because he picked up his 5th yellow card against Arsenal.
Just
so-
the one
Such a harsh card as well.
Yeah.
All the things he should have been booked for, that was the one thing he shouldn't have been booked for.
Exactly. I mean, God forbid he should have seen red in that game anyway.
Are you suggesting punching an opposition player in the back of the head is a card?
Look, what's a forearm between friends?
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Especially when he was yelling at him to get up afterwards as well. But yeah, so we're definitely going to have to see. I think we'll certainly see Bruno for the full 90 on Tuesday night. And then he can have a well-deserved, well, I say well-deserved, but well-deserved. It doesn't really come with a bit of a funny pinch of salt there, because we don't really want to miss him Bournemouth, but there you go. So we'll certainly get 90 minutes out of Bruno, and then he can have a rest. I agree with what you were saying about using Joe Linton as well. I think the option is going to have to be there when we get. Obviously, we'll talk about the forward line when we go into this, because we'll probably see another hour's worth of Callum Wilson again to try and keep his legs fresh for the games in the Premier League as well, because unfortunately for the moment he is our sole recognised striker. And again, I think the option is there for Eddie, and we'll probably see a repeat of it again around about the hour mark, give or take. Wilson will be taken out of the game regardless of the scenario, I would think, because he is that important to us. And then we'll see that swap, and Joe Willock will come on, and then Joe Linton and him will then do the little switcheroo and be that little dynamic flexibility on that left side. Gordon will probably move into the middle again. And I think, do we all agree that Almiron will start on the right on Tuesday?
Yep.
Yeah,
100%.
spot on.
Who else is going to play
then
there?
Obviously, well, I'm not going to say, well, Matt Ritchie, of course, but I don't think that's not real. That's not really a realistic starting point for the Champions League game. Go on.
Matt Ritchie against Bournemouth, against his old club.
Well, yeah, I mean
he's due a goal.
Bournemouth.
He's due a goal.
He's due a corner flag whack. I said that in the review.
Oh yeah, he could be back on pens if Wilson's not there. But I think the other thing, I thought at one point on Saturday against Arsenal that Livramento was going to come on for Almiron and play as a right winger, but obviously with the injury to Dan Burn, that put the kibosh on that. But I suppose that could be an option at some point later in the game if he wants to get Almiron rested. He could do that and then bring on Kraft to come in at right back. But again, we're just playing fantasy football a little bit there. And it could be a decision that could backfire as well, because it is only going to be Emil Kraft's second appearance of the season really in the first team, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting game. Again, we better mention that it's going to be live on BT Sports at 5:45. It's not BT Sports, TNT Sports. Sorry for listeners in the UK and watchers, of course. So it's live on TNT Sports at 5:45 on Tuesday evening. That's 5:45 UK time, of course. And then again, that will set us up nicely for the little run of fixtures that we'll have up until the next international break as well, which is coming up very, very soon. God forbid, because we don't like international football. It's all about club football these days. Sorry, that's just me getting a little rant out there. But yeah,
get off your soapbox.
Well, exactly, yeah. Even though Gareth Southgate was at the game yesterday to watch us against Arsenal, but I think he was probably watching Declan Rice and Callum Wilson more than anybody else.
He wasn't watching all of the English players that we play.
No, definitely not.
The 8, the 9, the 10 English players that played for us. He wasn't watching them.
No, definitely not. So we're gonna. That's another rabbit hole that we can't afford to go down on this particular episode anyway. So we'll move on to our predictions for this one. I'm not going to go first like Scott likes to do sometimes, so I'm going to ask Dan, what's your prediction for this one?
I think it's going to be 1-1. I think, it's. I could see a goal in it for each team. I don't think we're a great away team, but I think we'll be a lot more clued up than the home game. I don't think an away draw is the worst result in the world. That'd put us on 5 points. And then I think at this stage, we're hoping that PSG beat Milan, really. Like PSG to be group winners, and then let us and Dortmund dog it out for second place. And I think I'd be very if we can get away draws and beat Milan at home, that'd be magic.
Do you know how the head-to-head rule works if we beat them?
God. Yeah, so it goes on goals.
Sorry.
No, just go on
The
goals.
cops turning.
It goes on away goals. Goals scored. Because actually, sorry, it goes on the overall like score.
Oh, second
Oh,
aggregate.
you mean like an aggregate score together?
Yeah, like I do actually have the rules. If you want to go through all your,
I'll do mine.
Yeah.
And then I'll see if I can find the rules. Give us a
Well,
couple.
I'm glad you've
No,
gone
right.
first, because Scott usually bins it off onto me straight away. So I think I'm minded to agree that a score draw is a logical thing to predict, because I agree. I think obviously our home games are where we've been incredible, but I actually think from watching that Bayern game, the way we'll approach this will suit us so much better against Dortmund, because there are times where our team under Howe does get played through a little bit, and I don't think we always talk about it, but there are times where we do get played through the midfield, and when the press gets beaten, we look very exposed. I think we're in amazing form. We've just come off the back of two. Well, I can't say Man United is a difficult game anymore, really, but the Arsenal game as well. Two amazing results. The spirits will be high. The first 11 we've got is still good, despite the fact we've got all these injuries. So I'm going to go one better just to be positive and say we're going to win 2-1. And I think it will be, we'll go 1 up, they'll bring it back, and then we'll manage to find a way just to get that one at the end.
I like
a Matt Ritchie penalty.
Unreal that.
And then he can kick
why not?
the corner flag at Dortmund. That'll be the best corner flag he's ever kicked in his life.
Can you imagine he could kick the corner flag at the yellow wall and take down the yellow wall with the corner flag.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
But no, I think 2-1. I think that's maybe being optimistic, but it's a Newcastle podcast. You got to have a bit of optimism, so we'll go for the win.
Yeah. Well, I'm very much like Dan, and I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I think we will show a little bit more than what we did in the game at the San Siro, because obviously this is our second away game in the group. I also think that we'll learn from the lessons of the home game, and we'll be able to deal with Dortmund a little bit better. And as Dan brilliantly mentioned earlier about beating the trap for the fullbacks, I think we'll be capable of doing that. In the modern game of football, these clubs do all their research on the opposition teams, and I think they'll probably take a lot from the game that they played against Bayern Munich at the weekend. And I think that our plan of attack will be to try and utilise what they will have seen in that game to try and just break them on the counter. We will have the players available to do that as well, obviously with Almiron and Gordon. Wilson, maybe not so much for his blistering pace, but he is able to get around the pitch with quick. He's quick around the pitch when he moves. And again, we've got willing runners in midfield. You've got your Joe Lintons who can get up there and get around. You've got your Sean Longstaffs who can get in there, get around. And then, of course, we have the danger man himself in Joe Willock, who just when things are getting a little bit tough and opposition players are getting a little bit tired in the second half, he can come on, he can run at them with his pace and cause all sorts of bother himself. 1-1 for me, and I'm hoping, Dan, you've managed to find out what we need to know about these rules.
I do. So basically, obviously goes for points in the head-to-head. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. So to even stand a chance, we need to win, basically, for the head-to-head. From there, it goes in the goal difference in head-to-head matches. So that's basically an aggregate scoreline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if it was, if we win by 1 goal, then that's a tie. So then it goes on to the next rule, which is goals scored in head-to-head matches amongst tied teams. So if it's, again, that's going to be difficult.
So that would be like we won 2-1.
We would
have the benefit of that.
Yeah, I mean, it feels,
I guess it has to be complicated, but
yeah. I think for argument's sake, we should probably, for argument's sake, say it's just going to be a 1-0 win to us, and then we can go on.
Okay, so from that, you've then got the away goals scored in head-to-head, so that would be a tie.
Yeah.
If we won 2-1, then that'd be great. We'd win the head-to-head. 1-0, then you're looking at the rest of these. So it's goal difference in all group matches. So it just goes to your overall goal
Normal
difference.
goal difference. Yeah.
That would help us at the minute after the win against PSG.
That would help. After that, it's just goal scored. So it's like a normal league now. Goal difference,
Right.
then goal scored, then away goal scored in all your group matches. Then wins in all group matches. So how many wins have you got? Then how many away wins have you got? And then it's disciplinary points.
Oh God.
And then if all is even after disciplinary points, it's the UEFA club coefficient, which would give Dortmund the advantage if it ever got there. But thank goodness Joe Linton hasn't, like, I think, didn't Joe Linton miss a couple of the games?
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, he did. I mean, God forbid it has to go all the way down to the UEFA coefficient to settle.
I know, that'd be wild.
Imagine missing out because someone took the shirt off when they scored and got the box. That's the thing that means you don't qualify. That's ridiculous.
I'm pretty sure it won't get to that.
I don't think it will either.
So, well, I think that's a great point on which to end it. I think we've gone for about half an hour, so that's pretty good running for us. So I need to thank you both, Andy and Dan. Thank you very much for joining us on this one. And again, I've somewhat steered the ship through these choppy waters. Sorry to make that reference, Andy.
You've done a great job.
You do great.
These waters aren't anywhere near as choppy as what that sea's going to be when Andy's
I can already see the dread in his face.
I've got mail. Me tan from my holidays completely disappeared.
If you crash and there's any wooden doors, remember.
All right, I'm leaving now.
Two people can get on one.
Just check you've got your life jacket on and you know where you're going.
Yes, I know.
Vaseline, it'll help insulate.
I'm just gonna fly. Does anyone want me to?
Okay, so before we wrap it up for the final time, we just need to thank everybody for watching. If you want to become a member, like I said before, it's from $2.99 a month. And don't forget to click your likes and your subscribes. You can sign those at the bottom of the video. And then you can also click the little notification bell to be notified when we launch our videos or when we go live, should we do that. With plenty of content to come up this week. If you're watching this when it goes out on Monday, you've got the Always Smiling Faces podcast coming on Monday night, where we'll probably talk a bit more about Mikel Arteta throwing these toys out the pram. I get that reference in because it's always fun. And then we'll have a reaction to this game at some point during the week. And then we'll also have another preview towards the end of the week for the game at the weekend against Dortmund. Again, so thank you, everybody, on behalf of Dan and Andy. And again, Andy, I hope you have a mint time. Please bring back some points. Definitely at least one, hopefully 3. Plenty of steins of lager while you're over there as well. Like I say, I just hope you have a mint time. I have to put this in because it's so close to Dusseldorf. The Geordie exodus in a Wiedersehen Pets fashion is happening. And I hope you all have a mint trip. Mark's already over there, so I don't think we'll see him tomorrow on the All Smiling Faces, but Mark's going to be over there as well. So I hope you all have a lush time. I think Scott's going. Did he tell us he was going? He's got himself a ticket as well. So, like we say, and everybody who's going, have a mint time. I'm very jealous of you. Nice see you in Paris if I can get a ticket. And from me and the team here, I wish you a very good. Well, I don't know what time you're watching it. I'm not going to say good. It's good night as we record, but we'll say goodbye and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.